The champagne flute trembled in Dex Harrington's hand the moment Sienna Graves walked into the Plaza Hotel ballroom. The woman moving through the crowd wore a black Valentino gown that probably cost more than his car, her dark hair swept into a chignon that screamed old money. Diamond earrings, the kind you see behind bulletproof glass, caught the chandelier light like tiny supernovas, but it was her eyes that made his blood freeze. Those same warm brown eyes that used to watch him over coffee in their cramped Hell's Kitchen walk-up. Except now they were cold, calculated, utterly unrecognizable. "Who is that?" His fiancée Blair whispered beside him, her Rothschild diamonds suddenly looking costume grade. The portly banker next to them chuckled nervously. "You've been in the Hamptons too long, Blair. That's Sienna Graves, the Sienna Graves, Gravecorp Industries. She just absorbed 3 of Dalton Capital's key holdings last quarter. Word is she's worth north of $8 billion. $8 billion. The number detonated in Dex's skull like a flashbang grenade. His ex-wife. The woman he'd left in a 4th-floor walk-up 3 years ago with nothing but thrift store furniture and a broken heart. The woman whose biggest splurge was Sunday bagels from Zabar's. That woman was now cutting through New York's elite like a shark through sardines, and every power player in the room was angling for 30 seconds of her time. Sienna's gaze swept across the ballroom and locked onto his. No recognition, no hurt, no anger, just the kind of look you'd give a smudge on a window, mildly irritating, easily dismissed. That look told him everything. He wasn't her unfinished business. He was already forgotten. But to understand how a food blogger from Brooklyn became the woman who could buy and sell everyone in this room, and why her return was about to burn Dex Harrington's carefully constructed world to ashes, we need to go back. Back to when Sienna Vale still believed in fairy tales, before she learned that some princes are just con artists in expensive suits. 3 years earlier, Sienna Vale was happy in a way that seemed impossibly quaint in retrospect. Their Hell's Kitchen apartment was a 5th-floor walk-up that smelled like the Thai restaurant downstairs and had radiators that clanked like Jacob Marley's chains every winter. But it had exposed brick, a sliver of a view toward the Hudson if you pressed your face against the bathroom window, and it was theirs. She'd wake at 5 a.m. to photograph sunrise shots of her breakfast creations for her food blog, Table for Two. The blog had 47,000 followers, real people who tried her recipes, not bot accounts. She made exactly enough from sponsorships and freelance food writing to cover groceries and her half of the $2,800 rent. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. She loved it. Dex Harrington was supposed to be her forever. They'd met at a Columbia mixer 5 years ago, him in his final year of business school, her finishing a culinary arts degree she'd paid for with student loans and weekend catering gigs. He'd had this way of making her feel like the only person in a crowded room, like her stories about perfecting croissant lamination were as fascinating as merger-acquisition deals. "You make things beautiful, see," he'd said on their 3rd date, watching her plate a simple pasta dish with the precision of a surgeon. "That's a gift." They got married at City Hall on a Thursday afternoon because it was cheaper. Her dress was from a vintage shop in the East Village, $200, cream-colored with pearl buttons down the back. His suit was borrowed from his roommate. They had pizza at Lombardi's after, splitting a margarita and a bottle of cheap Chianti, and it was perfect because it was theirs. She gave up the NYU culinary instructor position she'd been offered. It would have meant nights and weekends, less time together. Dex was building his career at Dalton Capital, a mid-tier private equity firm in Midtown. He worked punishing hours, came home exhausted, and she was there, always there. With dinner plated, his shirts ironed, their tiny kingdom maintained. "You're my home base," he'd say, kissing her forehead while loosening his tie. "My one constant in the chaos." She'd believed him. God, how she'd believed him. What Sienna didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that she wasn't Sienna Vale at all. Her real name was Sienna Graves, sole heir to the Graves family fortune. Her parents, Helena and Marcus Graves, had built Gravecorp from a single textile factory in Queens into a diversified empire. Real estate, manufacturing, and a quiet but ruthless private equity arm. They'd died in a helicopter crash when she was 19, a Columbia sophomore hiding from her legacy under her mother's maiden name. But she hadn't inherited directly. The estate had gone into an irrevocable trust managed by her uncle Vincent as trustee until she turned 25. She'd gotten access to trust income, enough to live comfortably if she'd wanted, but she'd refused it, living off her blog and freelance work instead. At 25, she'd gained the right to dissolve the trust and take full control, but she'd deferred it. Vincent had agreed reluctantly to let her have more time to find something real, someone who loved her for her burnt edges and terrible singing voice, not her portfolio. The deal with Vincent was more nuanced than total absence. She'd given him broad power of attorney for day-to-day operations, but quarterly she'd fly to visit her aunt in Portland, actually attending virtual board meetings from anonymous hotel rooms. She'd sign documents via secure courier. She'd review major acquisitions remotely, her video camera always off, participating as Marcus Graves' grieving daughter, still recovering, completing her education. To the board, she was troubled, absent, but legally compliant. Vincent was competent, the company profitable. Her physical anonymity in New York was maintained because Grave Corp's headquarters was actually in Midtown, and nobody on the board lived in Hell's Kitchen or traveled in culinary school circles. And she'd been careful with her cover story. She told Dex a carefully constructed lie, raised by her Aunt Carol in Portland, Oregon, after her parents died in a car accident when she was 12. She'd even created a fake Facebook with strategically backdated posts, family photos with stock images, high school friends from paid actors willing to pose for an afternoon, even a fake aunt who was actually Vincent's assistant's mother, willing to take a call if needed. The Instagram account Sienna Vale showed a perfectly ordinary culinary student dorm rooms, study groups, coffee shops, nothing suspicious. Nothing that would make a busy MBA student look deeper. She'd hired a digital identity firm to create a convincing 10-year online history. It wasn't foolproof. If Dex had run a background check or hired a PI, it would have fallen apart. But why would he? She was a broke culinary student splitting a pizza with him on their third date. She was exactly what she appeared to be, or so he thought. She thought hiding her wealth was the ultimate act of love, proof that what they had was pure. Subscribe before you see what that love cost her. The cracks started small. A comment here and there. Did you see Bryce's wife? She just got a Range Rover. Must be nice having a partner who pulls their weight financially. Or, we've been in this dump for 3 years, see, when are we moving up? She'd tried talking to him, suggesting she could ramp up her freelancing, maybe teach some private cooking classes. It's not about the money, he'd said, but his eyes said otherwise. It's about ambition, about wanting more. The late nights at the office grew later. He'd come home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers, something expensive, something French. When she'd asked about it, he'd laughed it off. Client dinner, you're paranoid. She wasn't paranoid, she was heartbroken. The end came on their 6th anniversary. She'd spent the entire day preparing a 5-course meal, his favorites, each dish a callback to their relationship. The pappardelle from their first date, the lemon tart from the night he proposed. She'd set the table with candles and the nice plates they'd gotten as wedding gifts and never used. He came home 2 hours late with a blonde woman in a Burberry trench coat. Sienna, this is Blair Ashford, Dex said, not even having the decency to look uncomfortable. Blair, well, Sienna. Blair extended a manicured hand, diamond tennis bracelet catching the candlelight. It's nice to finally meet you, Dex has told me so much. The room tilted. I'm sorry, what? Dex loosened his tie, suddenly all business. See, we need to talk. Blair's father runs Ashford Properties. You've probably seen their buildings. They're all over Manhattan. We've been seeing each other for 8 months. 8 months. While she was photographing pancakes and planning surprise date nights, he'd been building a whole other life. I don't understand, she whispered. It's simple, he said, and there was something almost kind in his voice which made it worse. You're wonderful, Sienna, you really are, but you're a blogger. Blair's family has real resources. Her father wants me to head up their acquisitions division. This is the opportunity I've been working toward my entire life. We're married. And I've already filed for divorce. No fault. You'll get the security deposit from this place and I'll cover first and last on a studio somewhere. Brooklyn, maybe. You'll be fine, you're resourceful. Blair was examining their wedding photos on the bookshelf, her expression pitying. You have to understand, honey, this isn't personal, it's just business. Dex needs someone who can open doors. You're sweet, but you're entry level. Entry level, the phrase landed like a slap. Get out, Sienna said quietly. See, get out. They left. Dex took the nice watch she'd saved 6 months to buy him. Blair took a last pitying look around their shabby apartment, probably already redecorating it in her mind. Sienna stood in the ruins of their anniversary dinner, surrounded by candles burning down to nothing, and let herself shatter. Then she made a call. Uncle Vincent, she said, her voice raw but steady. I'm ready to come home. I want to dissolve the trust. I'm invoking my rights under Section 7. Have you ever lost yourself for someone who never deserved you? Comment what you would have done. The transformation was surgical, but it took time. Within a week, the legal machinery was in motion. Vincent had been preparing for this moment, and the trust dissolution paperwork was already drafted, but even expedited. It required 7 days of signatures, notarizations, and bank transfers before Sienna Graves had full, unfettered control of $8. $2 billion, Sienna Vale ceased to exist in any meaningful way. Vincent Graves sent a car, not the flashy Maybach but a discreet black Lincoln, to extract her from Hell's Kitchen at 3 a.m. She left everything except a single box of photographs and her grandmother's recipe book. Let Dex have the furniture, the dishes, the life they'd built with her labor and his lies. The Graves family penthouse was a full-floor unit in 157, the tallest residential building in New York. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park like a kingdom laid out for inspection. It was stunning. It was sterile. It was hers. Vincent was waiting in the living room, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, looking exactly like the corporate titan he was. He didn't hug her. He'd never been that kind of man. Welcome back, Sienna, he said. We have a lot of work to do. The first week was intensive briefings. She'd kept up with business news casually, but now she dove deep. Gravecorp had grown even bigger in her absence. $2 billion in assets, with holdings in commercial real estate, a textile empire that supplied half the fashion industry, and a private equity arm that specialized in hostile takeovers. Your father built this company on one principle, Vincent told her. Identify weakness, exploit it ruthlessly, and never apologize for winning. She'd spent 6 years being soft, being accommodating, being small enough to fit into Dex Harrington's narrow definition of acceptable. That woman was dead now. The physical transformation came next. Her long, carelessly maintained hair was cut into a sleek bob by Julian Farrell himself. Her wardrobe of thrifted sundresses and jeans was incinerated. Literally, she'd insisted on it, and replaced with armor. Tom Ford power suits, Valentino gowns, Louboutins sharp enough to draw blood. She hired a personal trainer, not for vanity but for posture, for presence. She learned to walk into rooms like she owned them, which increasingly she did. But the real transformation was internal. She attended every board meeting, absorbing the language of power. She learned to read balance sheets like poetry and spot corporate vulnerability like a predator scenting blood. Her father's old advisors were skeptical at first, Marcus Graves' daughter playing at business, but she proved herself quickly. Her first independent move was a statement. She identified a struggling boutique hotel chain that Dalton Capital, Dex's firm, had been circling for months. Gravecorp swooped in with a cash offer 40% above market value. The deal closed in 72 hours. Dex's bosses were livid. He'd spent months building that relationship only to be outmaneuvered by an unknown player. Who the hell is Gravecorp? She imagined him asking. He'd find out soon enough. She began attending the right events, being photographed at the right galas, making strategic donations that got her name in the society pages. Not as Sienna Vale, food blogger and abandoned wife. As Sienna Graves, the billionaire heiress who'd been studying abroad and was now ready to take Manhattan. The business press ate it up. The Iron Butterfly, Forbes called her. Beautiful, brilliant, and ruthless. 3 months after her return, she engineered her masterpiece. Dalton Capital had been aggressively courting Ashford Properties for a partnership, Dex's big play, the reason he'd traded her for Blair. The deal would have made him managing director, set him up for life. But Sienna's team had been quietly conducting due diligence on Ashford for 2 months before making their move. They'd identified that Thomas Ashford was over-leveraged on 3 commercial properties in Long Island City, bleeding capital monthly, and facing a potential liquidity crisis within 6 months. when Grave Corp made their offer, $1.2 billion, all cash with expedited closing terms, Thomas had been relieved. The deal closed in 3 weeks, lightning fast by real estate standards but legally sound. Dex found out the Monday after it closed when the press release went out. To him, it felt sudden. To Sienna, it was the culmination of careful planning that began the day she walked into Vincent's office and asked, "What's Dex's firm working on right now?" When the news broke Monday morning, Vincent called her into his office, grinning like a wolf. "That was personal," he said. "That was business," she corrected. "Ashford was undervalued. It's a smart acquisition. The fact that it destroys your ex-husband's career trajectory is just a happy coincidence." She smiled, the new smile, the one that didn't reach her eyes. "I don't believe in coincidences, Uncle Vincent." Dex Harrington's professional life began its slow-motion collapse. The Ashford deal had been his golden ticket and now it was gone. Worse, his bosses at Dalton Capital blamed him for losing it. He was quietly demoted, moved to a smaller office, cut out of the important meetings. Blair, who'd been so confident in their upward trajectory, started reconsidering. She didn't leave him, not yet, but the diamond ring on her finger suddenly felt less like a promise and more like a gamble going bad. Sienna watched it all from her perch at 157 and felt nothing, not satisfaction. Not revenge, just a cold, clinical awareness that this was simply the natural consequence of underestimating her. She'd been invisible to him, now she was inescapable. But she wasn't done, not even close. 6 months after her return, Sienna Graves was everywhere Dex Harrington looked. Her face in the Wall Street Journal, her company's logo on buildings he passed every day. Her name dropped in conversations at every networking event, always with a mixture of admiration and fear. He'd started Googling her obsessively. Every article about Grave Corp, every photo from charity galas where she stood next to governors and tech billionaires. In one photo, she was laughing at something the mayor said, and the sight of that laugh, the one he used to think belonged to him, made something twist viciously in his chest. "You're staring again," Blair said one morning over breakfast in their Tribeca loft. The place had been a gift from her father, all exposed concrete and reclaimed wood, trying too hard to be authentically New York. "I'm not staring, I'm reading the news." "You're reading about her." Blair stabbed at her egg white omelet with unnecessary force. "Your little ex-wife who wasn't so little after all." "I didn't know," Dex said, and he'd said it so many times it was starting to sound hollow even to himself. "She lied about who she was." "She lived in a walk-up with you for 6 years, Blair shot back. "She ate ramen, she shopped at Target, why would someone with billions do that?" "Because she loved me," Dex thought, and the realization hit him like a kidney punch. "She gave up everything because she loved me, and I threw her away for a real estate heiress and a corner office I never got." The irony was so sharp he could taste blood. Work was getting worse. Dalton Capital's senior partners were making noises about restructuring, which was corporate speak for "you're fired, but we'll let you resign first." He was being systematically edged out and everyone knew why. He'd lost the Ashford deal. He'd failed to see Sienna Graves coming. In private equity, that kind of blindness was unforgivable. "Maybe you should reach out to her," Blair suggested, her voice careful. "Apologize, see if she'd be willing to, I don't know, let bygones be bygones." "You want me to apologize to my ex-wife so she'll throw us a business bone?" Dex stared at her. "Are you serious?" "I'm being practical," Blair snapped. "My father says she's the most powerful player in New York real estate right now. One phone call from her could save your career. Put your pride aside and think strategically." Pride, as if that's what this was about, but desperation makes people do stupid things. Getting a meeting took 3 weeks and every remaining connection Dex had. He'd started with emails to the general Grave Corp address, ignored. Called the main line, blocked. Tried reaching out through LinkedIn, message unread. Finally, he'd swallowed his pride and called a former Columbia classmate who now worked in Grave Corp's legal department. "You're insane," the friend had said. "She'll never see you. Just ask, please." 2 weeks of silence. Then unexpectedly, "She says you have 15 minutes Friday at 4 p.m. Don't be late, don't bring flowers, don't grovel. She's giving you this meeting as a favor to me, not you." When Dex arrived at Gravecorp headquarters that Friday, he'd been pre-screened by security, had his phone locked in a secure locker, and was escorted by 2 different assistants before reaching her floor. This wasn't casual. This was carefully controlled access granted as a one-time courtesy that would never happen again. The office was a corner unit with 2 walls of windows overlooking Manhattan. Sienna sat behind a mid-century modern desk, backlit by afternoon sun, looking like a Renaissance painting of vengeance. The Valentino suit, the Cartier watch, the expression of polite curiosity that didn't quite mask the predatory intelligence underneath. "Dex," she said, not standing, "this is unexpected. Sienna, you look different. I'm wearing clothes that fit me." She gestured to the chair across from her. "You have 15 minutes, make them count." He sat. This clothes, he could see she really was different. Not just the clothes and the haircut, something essential had changed. The softness was gone, the eagerness to please. The woman who'd made him breakfast while he complained about his commute had been replaced by someone who looked at him like a problem to be solved or eliminated. "I wanted to apologize," he started. "For what specifically?" Her tone was clinical, like she was conducting a deposition. "For how things ended, for not seeing what I had, for being cruel." "You weren't cruel, Dex. You were transactional, there's a difference." She leaned back in her chair, the Cartier glinting. "You assessed me as having low market value and traded up. In your position, with your knowledge at the time, it was actually quite logical." The calm recitation of his sins was somehow worse than screaming. "I didn't know who you really were," he said. "No, you didn't ask. In 6 years, you never asked about my family, my past, anything that might have complicated your narrative." She smiled without warmth. "I was conveniently simple for you, the supportive wife with no baggage, no demands, no inconvenient wealth that might make you feel small. That's not fair." For the first time, something flickered in her eyes, not anger, but genuine curiosity. "You left me on our anniversary for a woman whose primary qualification was her father's real estate portfolio. You called me entry-level, and now you're in my office in my building discussing fairness?" Silence filled the space between them like poison gas. "Why did you buy Ashford Properties?" he asked quietly. "Was it just to hurt me?" "I bought Ashford Properties because it was undervalued and strategic. The fact that it destroyed your career trajectory was simply a bonus." She checked her watch, Cartier vintage, probably worth 6 figures. "Was there anything else?" "I miss you," he blurted out and hated himself for it. Sienna stood, walked to the window, looked out over Manhattan. When she turned back, her expression was almost pitying. "You don't miss me, Dex. You miss your ego being intact. You miss not feeling like the biggest fool in New York. But me, the woman who made you pasta and ironed your shirts and believed in you, you killed her, and I'm grateful for it." That woman was wasting her life. She moved to the door, opened it. The assistant materialized. "Melissa, please escort Mr. Harrington out and update building security, he's not on the approved visitor list." "Sienna, it's Ms. Graves. And your 15 minutes are up." He left because there was nothing else to do. As the elevator descended, he caught his reflection in the polished doors, a man who'd thought he was climbing when he was really falling. He'd come here hoping for mercy, maybe even reconciliation. He'd gotten a master class in consequences instead. Is this revenge or justice? Drop your verdict in the comments. Which brings us back to the Plaza Hotel ballroom, to Dex Harrington watching his past and his future collide in a Valentino gown. Sienna moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands with CEOs and politicians, laughing at jokes from people who controlled the city's purse strings. She was in her element now, and everyone else was just orbiting. "We should leave," Blair hissed. "This is humiliating." But Dex couldn't move. He was watching Sienna talk to Marcus Cho, the CEO of Cho Industries, New York's most powerful tech magnate. They were standing close, his hand resting proprietarily on the small of her back. They looked like the kind of couple that ended up on Forbes' power couples list. "Who's that with her?" Dex asked the banker. "Marcus Cho. He and Sienna have been working on a joint venture, some kind of sustainable tech real estate hybrid. If it works, it'll revolutionize urban development." The banker leaned in conspiratorially. "Word is they're more than business partners, if you know what I mean." Dex felt something crack inside his chest. It wasn't jealousy exactly, more like the final, belated understanding that he'd lost something irreplaceable and only now understood its value. Vincent Graves appeared at Sienna's elbow, whispered something. She nodded, excused herself from Marcus, and began moving toward the stage. The crowd quieted as she approached the microphone. "Good evening," she said, her voice clear and confident. "Thank you all for coming to support the Graves Foundation's literacy initiative. As many of you know, this cause is deeply personal to me." She paused, and for just a second, Dex saw a flash of the old Sienna, the woman who'd volunteered at the Brooklyn Public Library every Saturday, teaching ESL cooking classes to immigrants. Education and opportunity should never be determined by zip code or bank balance. For years, I lived a life where I saw firsthand how talent and potential can be trapped by circumstance. This foundation is my commitment to changing that. The crowd applauded. She continued, but Dex stopped hearing the words. He was trapped in memory, Sienna at their kitchen table helping their neighbor's daughter with college essays. Sienna bringing home leftovers from catering gigs to share with the elderly man in 3B. She'd always been generous. He just never valued it because it didn't come with a portfolio. After the speech, she descended from the stage. Marcus was waiting along with Vincent and a small cluster of the truly powerful. And then she did something that stopped Dex's heart. She looked directly at him. No warmth, no hatred. Just acknowledgement that he existed, like a footnote in a history book. Then she turned away. But Blair wasn't letting it go. Before Dex could stop her, she was moving toward the coat check area where Sienna had gone to retrieve her wrap. It was relatively private, away from the main ballroom where only a few guests and staff could overhear. Dex followed, dread pooling in his stomach. "Sienna," Blair called out, her voice tight but controlled. Sienna paused, coat half on, and turned with that perfectly neutral expression. "Blair, we need to talk," Blair said. "About Dex. About how you've been systematically destroying his career because you can't handle rejection." The coat check attendant was studiously examining tickets. A waiter passing by slowed, pretending to adjust his tray. "You bought Ashford Properties just to hurt him," Blair continued, her voice rising slightly. "You've been blacklisting him from opportunities. You're using your money to punish him for moving on. It's pathetic. Subscribe now, you won't believe how this ends." Sienna's expression didn't change. "Blair, let me clarify something. I bought Ashford Properties because your father was drowning. He'd mortgaged 3 properties against a commercial development in Long Island City that lost its anchor tenant. He was 8 months from bankruptcy. I saved your family's legacy." Blair went pale. "That's not..." "It is. Ask your father, ask your accountant. Ashford Properties was bleeding capital and I stopped the hemorrhage. We're partners now, Blair. Gravecorp owns 40% of Ashford Properties. Which means I own 40% of the building you're living in." Sienna's smile was knife-thin. "Your rent is currently $400 below market value. I approved that." Dex had appeared then, drawn by the tense voices. "Sienna, please, as for your fiancé's career troubles," Sienna continued, her eyes flicking to Dex. "I haven't given Dex Harrington a single thought beyond our brief meeting 3 months ago. His professional struggles are entirely self-inflicted." "That's not true," Dex said, his voice rough. "You've been everywhere I turn, every opportunity I pursue, you're already there." "Because I'm good at my job," Sienna said simply. "You're noticing me because you're finally paying attention. But I promise you, Dex, I stopped thinking about you the moment I left Hell's Kitchen." The words were delivered without malice, which made them devastating. He wasn't her villain origin story, he was barely even a footnote. Marcus Cho appeared at the entrance to the coat check area. "Sienna, our meeting with the mayor is in 15 minutes. "Of course." She turned to leave, then paused. "Blair, there's a box being delivered to your apartment Monday morning. Inside you'll find all of Ashford Properties' restructured debt agreements and the new profit-sharing structure. Your father didn't tell you we're partners. He was embarrassed, I assume. You should read it before you make any more accusations." Then she looked at Dex one final time. "I spent 6 years making your life easier, Dex, making you comfortable. Supporting dreams you abandoned the moment they required actual work. I'm not destroying your career, I'm just not helping you anymore. And apparently that's all the difference." She walked away with Marcus and Vincent, a phalanx of power closing around her, and Dex was left standing in the coat check area, the wreckage of his own assumptions scattered around him. Later that night, the coat check attendant would sell the story to Page 6 for $5,000. By Monday morning, it would be everywhere. But in the moment, it was contained, a private execution witnessed by just enough people to matter. "She saved my family," Blair whispered, staring after them. "She saved us and I just accused her of—" "Don't," Dex said numbly. "Don't finish that sentence." Because finishing it meant admitting what he'd been avoiding for months. He'd thrown away the one person who'd ever truly cared about him. And the woman who replaced her, she just realized it too. Blair looked at him and he saw his own irrelevance reflected in her eyes. "I think we're done," she said quietly, twisting the ring off her finger. "My father is going to want to maintain a good relationship with Gravecorp. Which means staying away from you." She dropped the ring in his champagne glass and walked away. Dex stood alone in the plaza, surrounded by Manhattan's elite moving past him like he was invisible, and felt like the poorest man alive. 1 week after the plaza disaster, a package arrived at Dex's apartment. Inside was a legal letter from Chen and Associates, a law firm with a Century City address he didn't recognize. "Mr. Harrington, on behalf of our client, we are enclosing documents pertaining to property acquisitions in Queens, New York, dated 2019-2024. Our client wishes to clarify that the strategic approach for these acquisitions was derived from a presentation you delivered at a Columbia Business School alumni mixer in March 2019. Your presentation focused on Maspeth and Middle Village, overlooked industrial areas near the Brooklyn-Queens border with good transit access but zero developer interest. You argued. Everyone's chasing Long Island City and Astoria, but look at Maspeth, 15 minutes to Manhattan, undervalued industrial buildings perfect for conversion, and a tight-knit community that would support mixed-use development if done respectfully. Our client found the analysis compelling and implemented a modified version of your strategy through Gravecorp Holdings. Between 2022-2024, Gravecorp purchased 12 industrial buildings in Maspeth and Middle Village, converting them into mixed-use spaces. These developments are now 95% occupied and have generated $280 million in profit. While you were not compensated for this publicly delivered presentation, our client wanted you to understand that your ideas had merit. The execution, however, required resources and conviction you did not possess at the time. Separately, our client has authorized us to inform you that Gravecorp is acquiring Dalton Capital. Your current position is being eliminated effective 2 weeks from the date of this letter. However, there is an opening for a senior analyst in the Queens Properties Division, reporting to Director of Mid-Market Acquisitions. The position offers $140,000 annually plus performance bonuses, commensurate with your experience level. If interested, respond to this firm within 48 hours. This communication should not be construed as an admission of any wrongdoing, liability, or personal sentiment. No signature, no name, but Dex knew exactly who our client was. He opened the enclosed thumb drive with shaking hands. The presentation was there, his own PowerPoint from 5 years ago with his name on every slide. Market analysis, demographic trends, development projections, all of it sound. All of it brilliant. And she'd made it real while he was busy trading her for a woman who just dumped him the moment he became a liability. The final document was Gravecorp's acquisition announcement for Dalton Capital. His career there was finished. But she was offering him a lifeline, not out of love or forgiveness, but because apparently even in her transformation, she couldn't entirely kill the part of her that saw potential in him. It was more chilling than a handwritten note. This was corporate precision, legally insulated, completely deniable. She'd given him the truth and the job offer without ever having to acknowledge his existence personally. It was the ultimate power move. I can destroy you or employ you. Your call. Dex stared at the letter until the words blurred. Then he did something he hadn't done since he was a kid. He cried, not for the money or the career. For the woman he'd been too stupid to see, for the life he'd demolished with both hands, for the 6 years of pure, uncomplicated love he'd treated like a stepping stone instead of a foundation. What would you do? Comment below. He took the job, showed up to Grave Corpse Queen's office at 9 a.m. sharp 2 weeks later, ready to learn. He worked hard, no complaints, no ego, just steady competence. He'd learned humility the hard way. By losing everything he thought made him valuable. He never asked for special treatment or attempted contact beyond professional emails. The quarterly reports showed he was good at his job. Turned around 3 struggling properties in his first year. The team respected him. He'd learned that the job wasn't charity. It was an opportunity to prove he could be better than the man who destroyed everything for an illusion of success. Sienna Graves stood in the penthouse at 157, watching snow fall over Central Park. Marcus Cho was beside her, reviewing final acquisition docs for their joint venture, a sustainable development project that would transform a forgotten corner of the Bronx into something beautiful. "Your uncle just texted," Marcus said. "The Bronx permits came through, we break ground in spring." Good. She signed the documents with quick, efficient strokes. They'd been partners for 2 years now, and the media kept waiting for a romance announcement that never came. Marcus was brilliant, kind, and utterly uninterested in her romantically. He was too busy being in love with his high school sweetheart, Julia, a public defender who thought the whole billionaire thing was adorably excessive. "You still get the notifications about him?" Marcus asked carefully. She didn't have to ask who. Her assistant Melissa had standing instructions to flag any significant updates about Dex Harrington's professional status. Not because she cared, but because effective leaders monitored their investments. "Sometimes," she said, "Melissa mentioned he's doing good work, 3 turnarounds in 18 months. That's solid performance." "It is." 2 years ago, she would have obsessed over every detail of his life. Now he was just another line item in a personnel report, performing adequately, no red flags, no special attention required. Her phone buzzed. Melissa's name appeared on the screen. "Ms. Graves, there's a message for you from Dex Harrington. He sent a letter to our corporate office. Security screened it, it's just a note. They're wondering if you want it forwarded or destroyed." Sienna paused. "Read it to me." Melissa cleared her throat. "I'm getting married. Her name is Lisa Chen. She's a 4th grade teacher. We met volunteering at the same food bank. She knows my history, all of it. I wanted you to know that the job you gave me taught me more than how to analyze properties. It taught me humility. I'll never be able to thank you properly, so I won't try. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. I hope you're happy, Dex." Silence on the line. "Ms. Graves, tell security to note he made contact, but that no response is required. File it and move on." "Understood." Sienna hung up, stared at her computer screen for a moment, then deleted the mental file labeled Dex Harrington for good. She hoped he'd be happy. She hoped he'd learned. She hoped he woke up grateful every day for a second chance he hadn't earned but got anyway. She hoped his fiancé never had to learn what Sienna had learned, that love without respect is just a beautiful prison. But mostly she hoped she'd never hear from him again. The greatest revenge wasn't destruction, it was indifference. It was building something so magnificent that the past became irrelevant. "Ready?" Marcus asked, pulling on his coat. "Julia's making dinner. She wants to meet the infamous iron butterfly." "Stop calling me that," Sienna laughed, grabbing her own coat, cashmere gray, understated. As they left, she caught her reflection in the elevator doors. Not the broken girl from Hell's Kitchen, not the ice queen from the plaza, just Sienna, powerful, peaceful, and finally completely herself. She'd been betrayed. She'd vanished. She'd returned as someone even she hadn't known she could become. But the real plot twist, the real victory, it was never about him at all. Stories like this prove that your value isn't determined by who sees it, it's inherent. Subscribe for more true power moves that changed everything.